We're back in 2026-1, continuing our fabricators and project setup. So today we are looking at piece marking, and there's a lot of information in here in piece marking, so let's just do a quick video. Let's see how fast we can get this video done. All bolted clip angles. So this is if you are a bolted shop and your shop's using wide gauge and narrow gauge and single angles. We don't use the heavy gauge often, so we don't really set anything up in here, but let's look at the wide gauge. Here are your bolt types: 3/4, 7/8, 1 inch, 1 1/8, 1 1/4. This is where you set your angle size up. Do you want the long leg supported, which is the beam framing in, or do you want it to be attached to the item that you are framing to? Since this is a bolted clip, it's shop bolted. So do you want standard round holes in the web of your beam? What's the gauge you want on your beam that is being carried, the one framing into the other item? In your outstanding leg going, so that would be the leg going to the supported member, which could be a beam, column. Do you want standard round, short slots, oversized slots, long slots? And do you want to use the gauge on the supporting member for the slots or all hole types? And then when do you want to start staggering your bolts? Okay, so that's all pretty self-explanatory. This is where the magic can happen, if you would like to call it magic. So clip angle piece marks with gauge outstanding leg. So if I'm doing clip angles and I'm using a short slot, what is my average gauge going to be? Usually 2 9/16, I believe, because you take 2 3/4, take out, so 2 3/4 minus 3/16 would be 2 9/16. And if you're using a short slot, that means your hole can, in your material that you're framing into, can be at 5 3/4, and even if your center of your slot's not, will it match that hole? So if I wanted to come in here and give all of those a mark, I would come in here and I would say, I want this one. Marks would depend on your fabricator, but a good one that we used to use was, this would be a B52, and then a B53, and so on. So what this would mean is it's a bolted clip angle, 5.5 inch gauge, 2 rows of bolts. 5.5 inch gauge, 3 rows of bolts. So that's what we would do. So you would be B54, B55, B56, B57, B58, so on and so on. Once you get them all set up, you hit OK. Narrow gauge, same thing, except for most likely if you're doing a narrow gauge clip angle, you will be staggering your bolts because the holes in the outstanding leg are too narrow for you to fit it right. So you would, same thing, figure out what you're going to do here, and we would always use B4-2, B4-3, and that would be bolted 4 inch gauge, 2 bolts, or 2 rows. So we'll hit OK on that one. Single angle clips, kind of the same thing, but this is if you're only using one clip angle. So if you're doing think about like a bolted shear tab. You're using an angle for a shear tab so you can shop bolt that angle to your carry-in beam. Same thing, you'll figure out your gauge, pop it in here for your piece mark. I don't have any suggestions for piece marks in this one. Sorry. So jump back to piece marking, then you have your bolted welded, which is your clip angles are going to be welded to your beam. Your clip angles will be welded to your beam and bolting to your carry-in member. So once again, it's the same thing, except for you don't have all the stuff about bolting to the supporting. So it still would be 2 9/16 if you're using a 5.5 inch gauge, and slots. So you'd come up here and make that slots, and then from here out, you can call this what it would be. We would use W52 for welded 5.5 inch gauge, 2 rows of bolts. Same thing as the last one, just using W's. Same thing with the narrow gauge, singles gauge. Then we have all welded clips. We don't give these any marks, but we'll take a quick look. If it's going to be welded to the supported piece, this is just asking what angle size you want to use, what your workable flat distance is, and that's how this is going to work. So if you had 8 inches of flat distance and I said I want to use a 6.5 inch angle, that's all going to work together. We don't typically use this connection. Same thing with this. If it's welded to supported, it's the same thing. So let's jump back to Piecemarking. Standard shear tabs. So in here is where we can set up our standard shear tab marks. So if I have a shear tab, shear plate that has 5 rows of bolts, 2.5 inches from the face, 1.5 edge distances all around, I can set that all up in here. So that's what we have set up here. You can see that this is saying our piece mark is a SP5. It's 15 inches long, 4 inches wide, 3/8 gauge, A36. It's a rectangular plate, 2.5 to the from the face of the weld to the hole, 1.5 edge distance, 5 bolts, 1 column of bolts. We're using short slots, 13/16 holes and 3/4 inch. Now let's look at this chart. I hate this chart. This chart was changed in 2025, and while it's nice that if I click this button I have the picture showing me it, I now have to click an additional spot to come over here and modify things. As detailers, we want less clicks, and adding clicks slows us down. So also what we used to be able to do if I hit cancel here is once I got this one finished out, I could just hit the tab button, go to the next row, and keep going. But in SDS2's infinite wisdom, they believe that we want to click new, type in our mark here, make sure all this is what we want, which is fine, and now I have to click here and come over, and I can type 2 here, and whatever I need to, it all gets it done. But what used to be 1 click and all keyboard is now 5 clicks, and I can't do everything with the keyboard. So bad move, SDS2. So that's how this works. Sorry about my short rant there. So let's look at standard end plates. Once again, bad move, SDS2. I do not like this chart. But this chart works the exact same way as the standard shear plate. You have your general settings where we're going to tell it piece mark, and if it's rectangular plate or flat bar, you know, what's your thickness, is it coped, and then you have your hole settings. And this is what it would look like if you put one in there. This says EP because I was thinking EP end plate. So next we have material and member and material marking. This is where we can tell SDS2 to break things apart if it's in a different sequence, a different zone. How do we want our handrail shown? Do we want to give each piece its own mark? Do we want to label it? So if we look here, break parts by assembly, or break major marks apart by, I can say don't break them apart at all. I can have B12 in 25 different sequences, or even if it's the same exact piece, I want you to make it a new piece mark if the sequences are different. Or even if I want to go, no, it's got different filled bolts, give it a different piece mark because the filled bolts are different. I don't recommend this one. I like breaking apart by sequence. So use the member mark for main material in the shop bill. So if I have piece 1B, it would say, if that is checked like we have it here on the screen, it would say 1B beam. The next line would be 1 beam W28 or W18 by 35 and so on. Keep it in the same. This is very important depending on the purchasing software that your fabricator could be using. So this should be in their standards. If not, you should ask. Same thing here. Do you want to use the main member mark for your stair details? I would say yes on that one too. All that is saying that is if it is a 35S, your main mark is going to be 35S. Then you are going to have a 35S0, a 35S1 if you have dog legs. Show your submaterial mark for your main material on your stairs. I recommend yes if you are using it. That way it's obvious what piece is what. Use member mark for main material in the model. Once again, I like to have that clicked because if I'm searching out that piece by find material, then it will locate that material. Show linear measure for handrail. That is, do you want linear foot? So if you don't know what linear foot is, that is where it adds all your handrails together and gives you one dimension. So it would say pipe, 1.5 inch standard, and then it would give a length of 49 feet. Or do you want each piece separate in your bill of material? This was good. We used to do this a lot back in the day, but nowadays with the nesting software that comes in, the purchasing software, that might not be needed. Do you want to show sub-material marks for your post and for your rails? I like to do this because, once again, with new equipment, every piece needs to be marked so they can actually get it laid out right. Submaterial. How do you want it called out? We call everything out on the first spot where it says 1 dash angle 3.5 by 3.5 by 3/8 by 5.5 inches, and then it's mark. You can also choose just to give me the piece mark or just give me the material type and piece mark, which would say 1 angle 1L dash A1. But we like to do at the first location this, the second location we just do piece mark. Now, what I don't like is if I came in here and changed one of these. If I come in here and I set the setting right here that says show piece mark in all views of member details, it does exactly what it says it will. It will, in every section cut, every main view, every rotated out view, it will go, this is A1 at every place A1 happens. The problem is every view has a primary spot, primary designation. So in every view, it's going to come out and say 1 angle 3.5 by 3.5 by 3/8 by 0 foot 5.5 inches A1. That's not how I believe this should work. Your primary location should be in the main view only. Every other view should be secondary. So we should only be getting piece mark. But that's not how it works. So we do not use this command because it doesn't work the way I believe it should. Where do you want to start your material piece marks at? Do you want your piece marks to all be A1 or do you want it to be A101 and start from there? Your default designation for user added material callout. The nice thing about this is whatever you put this on, if you use your material callout command, you can select the other two while in there. So we just leave this on piece mark, and that way I can choose which one I want to see. Do you want your quantity included in your user added bolt callout? I say yes, but that's really going to depend on what your fabricator wants. How do you want to call out your user added bolts? I like bolt size and type, but you could just make it bolt type. So I wanted to say 3/4 inch A325N. Do you want to show quantities on your submaterial details? We do not do this. Once again, we have purchasing software that counts that all. But what that would do is if you do use that, when you make your gather sheets, it would say you need 28 pieces of A1. But if A1 is using multiple sequence, every time you add a new one, it's going to revise that sheet. You should check with your fabricator once again to see how they want that to happen. Show member marks and quantities on submaterials. We don't do this, but we only don't do this because we use a custom report that puts it on there a little different than the way SDS2 does it. What this does is it puts underneath your piece mark, it says you have 2 on beam 47. And it will list out all the piece marks and how many there are. Do you want to prefix your material callouts with less than 12 inches with the 0? The length, yes, we do. So I want mine to say plate 1/4 inch by 12 by 2 foot 6 and 3/8. Or if it was less than 12, I would like it to say plate 1/4 inch by 6 by 0 foot 9. Do you want to break your parts apart by sequence or zone? That's up to the fabricator. Once again, we do not do that because we don't want to have 9 million submarks of the same piece. Show your non-standard grade. So if everything's A36 on your job, but you have a couple that need to be A572 grade 50, do you want that to show on there? Sorry, I skipped. Do you want it to put on your drawing near side, far side, or near side / far side? I would recommend yes. I would recommend yes. Show your piece marks for submaterial bolts on member details. I say no, or else because it's going to put a BLT1 everywhere, and I don't want that. Do you want it to reuse piece marks? I have that checked yes. It doesn't really do it that often. Do you want to force your flat bars to be smaller of the length and width? So do you want it to be a FL 1/4 by 5 by 4, or do you want it to be an FL 1/4 by 4 by 5? This forces it to be 4 by 5. Same thing with the bent plates, and then we talked about the show here. Group members, we don't use group members, so I don't ever make any changes here. Prefixes, this is where I can tell SDS2 that I want all my angles to be A1, A2, A3, or if it's a W shape, it will be a W1, W2. So I can change A to be P if I wanted to. I can make all of these A. If your fabricator wants all their marks to be P, you can make them all P marks. This is 100% up to the fabricator, but if they do want something that's different than what's done here, you need to do it before you start the job. This is why the setup is so important, because if you get in there and you model stuff and you have A's all over the place and then you're like, oh, I have to change these to P's, sometimes you are going to fight SDS2 to make that happen. So do your setup first, even though I know that doing the modeling is by far more enjoyable. Member descriptions, this is our last one. If it's a beam, we're going to call it a beam. Column is a column. Horizontal brace, vertical brace. I've seen people change this to say diagonal on both of them. I've seen just brace. That's up to your fabricator and yourself, how you were trained to do it. Then if you have miscellaneous, what do you want it to be called? Do you want it to be a miscellaneous, a handrail, a ladder? So like I can drag this guardrail up to, I thought I could. Yeah, I can make this guardrail the first one. So now anytime I put in a piece of miscellaneous, it's going to call it a guardrail no matter what it is, because it's not, it just knows it's miscellaneous material. So you can add up to 30 different items in here. So like I could come in here and I could have assembly. I could have cage ladder. So, you know, I would say that your entries are infinite, but they're not. You can only do 30. And then this is in the system. How do you want it to be called? So a beam is going to be a B_1, column is a C_1, and then you have, when you're loading your sheets, if you use auto sheet loading, I also recommend auto sheet loading. We'll look at that in the future. But this will say, okay, I selected 900 beams. I'm going to drop the B_, and if I'm auto sheet loading and it's a beam, it's going to add however you have the rest of the setup done, and then it's going to use your prefix as a B. It says prefix, but sometimes that's not a prefix. Here, it's not a prefix. It is always a prefix here in the system, but over here, it's not. It's wherever you tell it you want that. So let's hit OK on that, and that is done. We have went through all of these settings. You heard me complain about the lovely new schedules for the shear tabs and the end plates. I don't see that changing anytime soon, but I wish it would. So once again, thanks for watching. Next time, we will be looking at sheets and reports, which this is where we're going to find our bill of material and some other interesting things that we can change. So Thanks for watching, and I can't wait to talk to you next week.